This is Healing Wisdom. I'm Pandora Peoples. Today we're talking about a youth filmmaking workshop series happening August 5th through 8th, taught by 7 professional filmmakers. The 4-day workshop is free. First up, we're speaking with Claude Kerven. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your background. You are an Emmy award-winning children's television director, and you created 25 shorts for SNL. You directed They Never Found Her, starring Elizabeth Moss of The Handmaid's Tale. And you also were the co-writer of Mortal Thoughts, starring Bruce Willis and Demi Moore. And you got your whole start as a student making a student film, which won Best Dramatic Student Film. That was part of the Oscars. It was an Oscar award for Candy Store. So you've played many roles. So as a writer, a director, a producer, and you've worked in both film and television. So what excites you about the medium itself?
Well, I mean, I grew up I was raised by a television, I'll be honest with you. And so I loved movies and TV. I never thought it would be a future for me. But when I got to college and I discovered I didn't have it to be a doctor, I kind of backed into filmmaking, and someone said to me, you can get a degree in this. I said, no, come on, that's ridiculous. Because at that time, there really wasn't a lot of information about film schools. I didn't know you could go to school to study film. So I leaped at the opportunity and I discovered, wow, this is something that I do better than anything else. So this is what I want to be. But after undergraduate, I realized all I've learned is how to make experimental films. I don't really want to do that. I want to make mainstream movies. So I went to NYU grad school, got a great education, met a lot of really interesting people that I went to school with. Spike Lee and Jim Jarmusch and Barry Sonnenfeld and all kinds of people who did really well in the business. There was never any question for me once I discovered film that that's what I wanted to do. My mother was a teacher, and she said, you should have some teaching credentials to fall back on. And I said, I'll cut my throat before I become a teacher. But when I had a child and I discovered that working freelance was tough, I went to a place called the New York Film Academy to get a teaching gig, and they offered me the position of being the chair of the film department. So I did that for 15 years, and I discovered, lo and behold, what I really do best is teaching, or at least that's what I enjoy most. So at this point, it's really a case of being able to share the thing that I love with other people who have a similar love for it. And what I've always prided myself in is the ability to take complicated topics and explain them to people so that anybody can understand. It always bothered me in education when people would cloak what they're teaching in some sort of mysterious language to try to impress you with how much they knew. And I never understood that, because we all watch films, we all watch television, we all understand the same concepts. There's no reason to explain it to people in a way that makes it seem alien to them. So that's what I really do. I'm able to take these things and show to people, listen, you already know this. You've watched 20,000 hours of movies. I'm just taking it from your unconscious mind and bringing it up to your conscious mind, but you'll discover you already know most of this. Yes, there are certain skills that you have to learn about writing structure and what different shots do. But again, I just think it's all based on what we all like about storytelling and what we all like about visual storytelling.
Yes. Yeah. And film is so interesting because it combines a visual story with everything else. We get we get the dialogue, we get the sound. There's so much story structure that goes into figuring that out, but obviously intuitively we all have a desire to tell our own stories, right? And
sure.
People sometimes. So yeah, I would love for you to talk about the smartphone, because your class is going to be smartphone filmmaking.
I think a lot of people discovered during COVID, I don't need all this extra equipment. I don't need all these extra people. It limits me a little bit, but I can tell a great story and move people and make them think things just with my smartphone. And again, it's part of that demystification of the process where I think people think the equipment is the answer to everything, and it never is. I had so many students who made films that technically were beautiful to look at, but the story wasn't good or the acting wasn't good, and those films didn't go anywhere. And I had students who had a terrific story, found good actors, and even though their films might have had some technical problems, those films went to film festivals because they produced, tremendous meaning and emotion for people. So again, I just think it's a question of reminding people what goes on in front of the camera is the same, whether it's a smartphone or it's a 70 millimeter camera. And a lot of people have made feature films on smartphones. Tangerine was one of them, and Steven Soderbergh often prides himself on shooting feature films with his cell phone. Granted, it's an augmented cell phone, and the sound is probably recorded on something else, but nonetheless, the basic camera is the thing that all of us have in our pockets. So I just try to make it fun for people, especially when you only have an hour or so. I think let's just get into the part of it that's fun for us. Let's not talk about, here's a medium shot and that's a long shot, and, this is a panning shot and this is a dolly shot. Let's just get right into telling a little story in an hour. So I usually break students into crews of 4 or 5, depending on how many they are. And I'll have a camera person and a director, and I'll have 2 or 3 actors, and I'll bring in a scene for them to do, a simple little scene. And in 1 hour, they'll be amazed at the fact that they actually shot a little movie.
I'd love for you to talk about your background in screenwriting. You're also, I believe, like a screenwriting doctor. Like you help people one-on-one. Is that?
I do coaching, yes. Now that I'm not working 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, I'm able to spread my time a little bit more. And so I have a coaching website. And so I try not to focus just on feature films, which is most screenwriting websites, what they do, because a lot of the people, my former students, they're still at the level where they're making short films, music videos, commercials, episodic TV. So my coaching website tends to focus on that. But at Preservation Hall currently, I'm also teaching feature screenwriting. So I love teaching writing. Never thought I would. I went to film school because I like looking at movies. I had never been a creative writer, never thought I would be. And it wasn't until I had some good writing teachers who helped me understand it's not all about the language. It's really about being a student of human behavior. And if you're good at that, that's the key to writing good screenplays. Yes, there are some techniques about how to structure a script, which become more and more important the longer the script is. But nonetheless, once you understand those things, writing again just becomes what do I know is true about the world, and what can I share with people? And that's the other thing I often emphasize with students is that nobody's looking for you to make the next James Bond movie with your cell phone. So take what you know is true. Even if you're 12 years old, you've experienced enough about life to show people something that you think is true that they may not know, or show something to people that they think they know and show it to them in a slightly different way. So I know a lot of students often think, I haven't had enough life or experience, so I'm just going to do a detective story. Problem is, no one's going to believe you. No, your detective story won't have credibility. On the other hand, if you think about what your friends could realistically play in front of the camera, you'll have a story that is, people can believe in.
Can you talk about how a director takes what's written and makes it their own?
Saturday Night Live was a special kind of animal because you would get the script Tuesday, you would cast it Wednesday, you would find locations Thursday, you'd shoot it Friday, Friday night you were editing it, and Saturday night it was on the air. So unlike most filmmaking where there's tremendous pre-production and planning, this is just grab it and shoot it from the hip. And so the first thing for me was, this is comedy. People want to laugh. So the most important thing is for me, immediately it was, where are the laughs? Where are the punchlines that are indicated on the page? Let me underline them because that's what I'm doing. Where's the setup for that joke? Because visual jokes are similar to telling somebody a joke. There's the setup and then there's the punchline. And so where's the setup for that joke? And then I would look for where are the laughs that might be in between the lines? You know, I have these really funny people. I have Eddie Murphy or Billy Crystal. They can be funny beyond what's on the page. Where can I find moments for them to be funny? So that to me was what Saturday Night Live was all about. Where are the jokes? Where's the humor?
Yeah.
And then how do I tell those visually? You know, should I cut to the punchline? Should I pan to the punchline? Should I pan slowly to the punchline? So, you know, having a sense, directing comedy doesn't mean you need to be able to write comedy. It means you have to understanding of what makes things funny, and can you see that in your head? And if you can, you can direct comedy.
Interesting. That's cool.
And that's different from any other form, whether it's TV, commercials, music videos. The big key for those things is preparation. It's really hard to go out and catch lightning in a bottle. You might, but the odds are much higher in your favor if you've done all the planning. If you've found the right actors, if you've done your rehearsals, if you found the locations, if you took time to design the costumes and the sets and the props, you figured out where your shots are going to be, and you sort of directed the entire thing on paper before you ever get to the set. But something like Saturday Night Live, that's not the case at all. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
So it was fun. It was different. It was different.
More recently, you directed They Never Found Her. Can you talk about that experience?
It had to be done very quickly because I couldn't afford to pay those actors much. Elizabeth Moss wasn't the famous person she is now, but she had done a lot of work in Hollywood and she was well known in the industry. So I had to shoot it over Labor Day weekend. And basically, they flew in Friday. We shot Saturday and Sunday, and they flew out Monday. So there was a lot of preparation on my part, but not with them. And so we had to shoot very quickly, but I had two really good actors and they were able to get the idea right away. I mean, they had read the script in advance, obviously, and liked it. My Saturday Night Live experience helped with that. That was, it was really interesting to do something on such a small scale. One location, two actors, which is often what I try to tell my students. You don't need a huge cast. You don't need a lot of you don't need a lot of stuff. You need a good story, one location, one or two actors. That's all you need to showcase your ability as a writer and director. So I thought, well, let me see if I can do that. And so the script wasn't really intended. It was intended as a class project. That's what I wrote it for. And my friend who was a cinematographer read it. And he said, oh, no, don't do this as a class project. You should make this film. And then we sent it to a casting agent and they said, yeah, we'll do this for no money. And so I got composers and camera crew and equipment and almost everybody for just a shoestring budget, which was really lucky for me. But I think having had some experience before, so people trusted that I would make sure they didn't look foolish on camera. And everybody felt that they were putting their time and money into something that would turn out good. I know a lot of people have thought, oh, it'd be wonderful to make a film one day, but how could I do that? It would be so expensive and I don't have the crew or people. I wouldn't even know where to begin. And so part of what I do with students is showing them you already have everything you need pretty much at your disposal. You just need an idea and you need the will to go out there and be brave and do it. And so I hope that people leave the class feeling like, okay, film business is like not a million miles away from me. All right, big Hollywood, $200 million movies, that might be a distance away. But the essence of it is right here. I can do it anytime.
Yes, so cool. And I know that there have been a lot of adults saying, when are we going to have our workshop? So in addition to your screenwriting classes, perhaps there is something for adults in the future as well. But in the meantime, everyone should tell everyone who has kids about this, and let's get everyone signed up because it's a fantastic.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Healing Wisdom on WOMR. I'm Pandora Peoples, and next we're speaking with Dana McCoy. Dana is a composer, songwriter, filmmaker, and theater director. As part of a youth filmmaking workshop series, Dana McCoy is teaching editing and music for film. The Youth Filmmaking Workshop Series is August 5th through 8th. It's taught by 7 professional filmmakers, and there are 9 classes. Students can sign up and register for free at wellfleetpreservationhall.org. They can sign up for 1 class, 1 day, or all 9 classes and all 4 days. Dana McCoy joins us now.
I plan to teach in the order you described, editing first, then probably more of a focus on scoring, but a little bit about all of the sound that happens on film. All of that is post-production. You have all these wonderful teachers, and most of them are teaching pre-production and production. And I'll be taking care of a lot of what happens in post-production after the film is shot or, quote, in the can. So, film lingo. We could have a whole class on that. That'd be fun. But so I studied editing at NYU, and I studied film scoring at Berklee College of Music, and I've got a lot of experience in both, much more experience at this point than the training itself. And I'm sort of a renegade filmmaker. I do so many aspects of filmmaking, and I've made my own guerrilla projects where I kind of directed them and did a lot of the different aspects. But the main thing that I am focused in is editing and scoring. And I also write songs. And so I've had songs in soundtracks, and there's a distinction to be made there between what is scoring and what is a soundtrack or song for a film. And there are things like what is source music that I want to talk about, which is pretty interesting. When you'll see it in the beginning of a film, but it could happen anywhere in it. And there's music that's going on with the titles and everything like that. But then as you zoom into the world of the film, you realize that the music is happening within the scene. It's a band that's playing on a stage, or it turns out that it's somebody's car radio. That's source music. These are some of the things I plan to be talking about, the differences there. So what it would be fun, I'll bring some examples and let the students maybe have some input about how we may edit some things. They may bring examples of things they'd like work on, and we could play with those. They would have to email them to me. There's something that happened when I was in school studying. My teacher did something that blew my mind, and I'd love to share it with these people, is to see films you're familiar with and without the music. The dialogue is there. All the other sounds are there. Whether it's speeding cars or a tornado, whatever it is, the sound is all there except for the music. And when you see a film without the music, it's such a different experience. We'll do some comparisons. And any film that the kids have based on maybe projects for the previous few days, if they have questions on how to edit their specific projects and or score those, we'll work with that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
To share a little bit more about myself so people know where I'm coming from. I mentioned some of my education, but in terms of experience, I have had songs on the charts, a handful of them, in the charts, to say the dance charts or the pop charts of Europe or that kind of thing. And also I've had some songs in films, and I've also scored them. And the difference there is, songs have melody and lyrics, but scoring is what you do to create an environment, a mood. It's about the emotion, the emotional experience of the viewer. That's why music is so important for film. And sometimes the lack of music can be important in certain places to create tension. You can create tension very much so with music, but sometimes it's just, you make these choices about where it goes, where it doesn't. I'm pretty excited to talk with these kids.
If you can share an example or a couple of examples of music that you've scored, how that worked, the process of it.
Yeah. Editing comes first. That's why I'll talk about editing first when we're there. in August, because a filmmaker will hand me a fully edited piece, and then I take it and begin to think about where the music will go. And I say an editor will do this, a filmmaker or director will hand me, sometimes that director is me. But so you want everything to be fully edited. And then editing is exciting because you really are shaping the story. If a director handed you a piece and said, okay, edit this, they're giving you a lot of leeway about the story you're going to choose to tell. Most directors would want to be present, because they want to guide where the story begins and where it goes and how it ends. But the editor has so much say in that. And you can really you can actually create a story just with your edit. You could just have a bunch of footage and fashion a story from that. So the editor that's a very powerful position. It can really make or break a film, and so can the music. Well, every aspect's so important, of course. So now you've got your edit, and you're going to think, okay, what do you think the emotion should be here? And think of what music is going to increase that emotion and really help make that emotion have impact. That's the goal, in my view. And so you can experiment, and there's a thing called a temporary track. You can take music that already exists and put it in place in your timeline. And the timeline is, you probably know what it is, but basically you've got your visual in the editing program, and you're watching that, and you can choose which pieces go into the timeline, and then you choose which music goes with it. Underneath that, there's a separate track for that. There's also a dialogue track. And so you mix all these, and we're going to talk about all that in more detail. But you can take temporary music and place it in there to see, does this kind of thing work or not? And if you like it, it gives you a sense of what you may then want to compose.
Can you talk about the creative part of composing music for film a little bit?
That's tougher. I'm happy to try. I may sound silly. It delves into a spiritual mode now, because I really don't know if I create it. I just listen, and I hear what I think will work, and I don't know where it comes from, but I can help the kids along with it. I say kids, and they're, the people are from 10 to 18, correct? So young adults. But yeah, how to do it. I think we can just try as a group to compose something and see how that goes. Because you just have instincts, I think, about what would go here. I can ask the students, well, what style of music do you want to try here? And they can talk about that. And sometimes I'll hear a specific instrument. And so if I have one of whatever the instrument is, or you can sometimes find it in your computer sounds through a music program, and try that instrument there, and then just try some melodies. And maybe you get a sense of the tempo of the scene. Should it be something agitato, kind of nervous sounding, or could it be legato, sort of quiet and flowing? And you make those decisions, try them out, and then keep going. And generally some sort of notes will come, or you just try them and things will fall into place. It's magical what happens.
Does music ever contrast to the scene? Is there ever a case where you would have an agitated, anxious scene with people being stressed out or upset, and then you're playing like slow music, or vice versa?
What a fantastic question. Sometimes you can create tension by countering what the scene seems like. So that's a really subtle, great point that you raise. And sometimes you can create suspense by not having music. You feel like something's going to happen because there is no music, or the wonderful thing, who doesn't think of Jaws? Da 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 da. That music is like, ah. And there's a thing called a leitmotif, and the leitmotif is the music of a specific character. So the shark's leitmotif was da da. Whenever you heard it, you knew the shark is coming. I learned recently something so funny. The reason that they relied so heavily on the music was because the shark machine that they had kept misbehaving. They couldn't, they kept having mechanical problems so that you almost never could see the shark. So they made it, you could hear it. You knew what was happening because of the music. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. And so, right, music can really enhance a character. So you're
Interesting.
absolutely right. Sometimes you do go counter to the feeling of a scene, and sometimes that can create comedy as well.
Can you talk about the music that was in a recent film? I know it won like 16 awards, including like a Cannes Film Festival award.
Yes, actually, by the end of it, it was 18. Can you believe that? Might have only had 16 when you and I spoke, but it's still, they're still flowing in. The film is called Three Muses. And I think it's now through the festival phase where I can actually post it finally. It was directed by Marcia Halfrecht of the Actors Studio. So she's a lauded, very well-respected actress and filmmaker now. In her 70s, she became a visual artist. She's now in her mid 80s, I believe, and still going strong. Amazing woman. Still acting at the Actors Studio. And so she created a film, Three Muses, about three female artists, visual artists of different ages, from different backgrounds, but who were connected very close with one another. And it's a very beautiful film, about 20 minutes long. And Marcia had been a fan of an album of mine in the past when I was studying with her acting. She really loved my music so much. And she basically asked me if I'd be willing to score this film for her, which I was very honored to do. Oh my goodness. I took instrumental music that I had been working on. Some of it was previously composed, and I tailor fit it to the film based on the tempo of the scenes, which you can tell, like somebody will be walking or there'll be a rhythm there somewhere. In one case, she was painting, so I used the rhythm of her brush strokes. And some of the music I composed specifically for the film. Some of it was previously done, but I tailored it. And I felt very nervous working on it because Marcia is so special and she means a lot to me. And so I wanted to do a great job, but I had no real idea how it would go. When she sent it out for festivals, 6 of those awards came back specifically for the original score. And I was so proud of that. I was so excited because I've had music, songs in films, and I've created partial scores, but this one was completely my own. And it was very much most of the film wasn't dialogue. It was mostly just seeing the women interrelate, and watching them work on their art. So it was heavily reliant on the music and the beautiful visuals. There's music almost completely through it.
What an incredible thing. What an incredible honor.
I had been writing and composing instrumental music since I was very young, but I had not found an outlet for it. Really, I'd been so focused on songwriting, and I've toured as a music artist, and that's where my focus really was. But I, for myself, had been composing all that time, all this instrumental music. So to take my favorite pieces from over time and a little bit of new music and add it in there and get feedback from the world like that, it was like, oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Let's keep going. And I am. And I hope I can help these young people wish to do the same, because it's very gratifying. Even before you put it out there, it's just, there's something about bringing emotion to life in a film that's really gratifying to me. And I think maybe we'll see if we have some film composers in the group too.
So cool. Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning, talking about this. It's going to be an amazing workshop, and I'm so happy that you are sharing your wisdom and knowledge with the students.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you for thinking of me, including me, and also with all the other wonderful filmmakers. I'm going to attend because I've had several other people complain, that's ageist. Why can't I go? I brag, well, I get to go. Ha ha.
So students can sign up to register at wellfleetpreservationhall.org, and they can go to the calendar to August 5th, and also Eventbrite. They can go to Eventbrite and look up Wellfleet Preservation Hall. It's August 5th through 8th, and your class is on the 7th at 1:30, and then again at 3 o'clock. Thank you so much, Dana.
Thank you. This is very fun. It's always lovely to talk with you and see you.